in this lawsuit that each of these officials took a sworn oath and had a duty and a responsibility to promote and protect the public health, safety, and peace, and they failed to do that. So this is a lawsuit that is based on a failure of city government at the highest levels. The mayor, the interim police chief, and the city council member. This lawsuit is based on a failure of city officials to provide even the most basic public safety and public protection to citizens within that University Avenue area where the Rayshard Brooks shooting occurred. And so there are specific allegations that are enumerated and set forth in our lawsuit, but that maybe a year ago we set forth in a notice to the city, giving the specific facts, the specific claims, some of which the mayor has acknowledged. If you go back to the Atlanta Journal article from July 8th, the mayor did an interview with the editorial board, and she essentially conceded that while they had planned and decided to go to the area and to clear away the barriers and to clear away at least those who were not peacefully protesting, they held off on doing that because of a request from Council Member Joyce Shepherd. The problem is that they failed to take any action to address the reports of crime, the reports of violence, and the reports of danger within that area until after it was too late. So it wasn't until after Secoria's tragic death that the city finally did what they should have done weeks before. They demolished the Wendy's restaurant. But what you will see from the specific facts that we allege in this lawsuit is that this all occurred at a time when APD officials, people within the command of APD, and we reference this in our complaint, there's a memo from an APD commander essentially saying to officers, unless you just happen to observe a crime occur, we don't want you to actively patrol. And we believe that that is part of the problem and part of what led to this incident. And in this case, more specifically, we believe the evidence shows that the mayor gave specific direction to the police chief and to the police department to stand down. So that is a dereliction of duty. That is a failure to abide by the specific mandates and the terms of her oath. Protect the public health, safety, and peace of citizens. Thank you.
Additionally, in addition to the public officials who we believe are responsible for Secoria's death, there were also private entities who had a responsibility. We'd like Attorney Harold Spence, a partner at our firm, Davis Bozeman, a law firm, to come up and discuss these private entities who failed in their duty to protect those that would come upon the property or near the property. Attorney Spence.
Thank you, Attorney Davis. You just heard Attorney Sam Starks give a passionate explanation of the city's abandonment of its responsibility. But the governmental actors were not the only parties abandoning their responsibilities. There were private actors that were involved. So this lawsuit in part is against the owner and operator of the Wendy's location at University Avenue. The law does not give you the right to own property, to operate a business at that property, and then abandon it when you know that there are armed vigilantes there harming citizens, controlling ingress and egress. You don't have the right to abandon that property. And it's in because of their abandonment of their legal responsibilities that we're here today asking the question that Attorney Mowley Davis raised at the beginning, looking at the life that could have been. You know, maybe had Secoriea lived, she would have become mayor and wouldn't have abandoned her responsibilities. Maybe she would have become a city council member and wouldn't have abandoned her responsibilities as happened in this case. But we think that the private actors in this case, the owners and operators of that University Avenue property, are as equally culpable as the city of Atlanta. And we tend to do everything within our power as a unified legal team to hold them accountable for that which they cannot return to this mother and to this father, the precious life of 8-year-old Secoriea Turner.
I'd like to bring forward a long time friend and graduate also of Georgia State College of Law, but someone I believe is one of the preeminent civil rights lawyers in the country, who does it without a lot of fanfare, just does it because I believe that the Johnny Cochran spirit is in his DNA. And I'm grateful to be able to be co-counsel with a partner here at the Cochran firm, Sean Williams, who is a son of Atlanta, who has deep roots here. And so he does not come as an outsider casting dispersions, but he comes as someone who loves this city, our community, has shown that through his work, both his philanthropic work as well as his work as a lawyer and as a community contributor. So, Sean.
Thanks, Mowley. Good morning. Our first responsibility, I think, we've talked about legal responsibilities, the owners and operators of Wendy's. We've talked about the responsibilities of the mayor, city council, chief of police. But the ultimate responsibility is the fact that we, as a community, as adults, have a duty to our children. And that is the ultimate failure in this case. So many adults who had power, responsibilities, obligations, opportunities to stop this did not. And so the ultimate tragedy is that we have an 8-year-old beautiful little girl whose life was taken before its time when it could have been avoided. So the first tragedy is that we lost an 8-year-old girl. The second tragedy is it was preventable. And what we've learned in our discovery from the beginning of this case is that there was opportunity after opportunity and notice after notice, not only from the Wendy's owners and operators, but from the city, the mayor, city council, and the police department to do something about this, and they failed to do that. But the other tragedy is the fact that we're here almost a year later, and this family has not gotten justice. Think about that. There is no dispute that this little girl was innocent, that this family was innocent, did nothing wrong, on their way home, and they lost their little one. And a day after, they came down to City Hall, did a press conference with the mayor, if you guys remember. And I quote, the mayor said, "Now we are demanding action for Secoriea Turner." That was a day after the tragic death of this little girl. And yet, a year later, we are here to say, with this lawsuit, we're still demanding action. We're demanding action in this lawsuit against the city of Atlanta. We're demanding that they take responsibility. In that press conference, Mayor Bottoms said, enough is enough. We remember that. Well, we're here to say, on behalf of this family, enough is enough. Enough is enough of this city claiming to be the beacon of civil rights and civil justice, and yet failing and time again showing that the lives of black people don't seem to matter when the city's actions have caused the death of someone of color. We got too many instances. And yet what's so tragic is we are quick in this city to get on national TV, to parade the fact that we're the city of civil rights and Martin Luther King and John Lewis. And other cities who don't have that rich heritage step up to the plate and take responsibilities when their employees and their agents do something wrong. Minneapolis has resolved a case of George Floyd. We got Louisville taking responsibility for their actions. We got Columbus, Ohio doing it. And yet, time and time again in this city, when there's officers, city officials, city agents who are here to protect and serve, we never hear anybody from the city taking responsibility or making sure these families get justice. You cannot call yourself great, as Winston Churchill says, without responsibility. And that's what this lawsuit's about, to hold the city responsible. We also want to hold Wendy's and the operators of that business responsible. And the only way we could do this is to bring a lawsuit. After almost a year, when this little girl did nothing wrong, this family did nothing wrong, the tragedy is the fact that we had to file this lawsuit and do this press conference instead of someone from the city or from these corporations stepping up, accepting responsibility. So we're going to hold them responsible, the Davis Bowman's law firm and the Cochran firm. We're going to use every resource, every bit of our legal power to hold them responsible, because this little girl deserved it, and this community deserved it. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to call up the parents of Secoriea Turner for a brief statements. Charmaine Turner, Secoriea Williamson.
Secoriea should be here. None of what we're doing will ever bring our baby back. Her life is priceless. We're forced to live through this day by day. We deserve justice. Someone needs to be held accountable.
We're here for accountability. Everyone that was in cause of this happening. How could you let protesters take over Busy Street in Atlanta and let no one go down that street to patrol? People saying that they standing for something, falling for anything. We're just here for accountability and to make sure everybody that's responsible or that is caused for her losing her life. Our child's supposed to be here a couple days for our brother's birthday. Our brother's birthday was June the 4th. I had to go sit with her. I had to go to her grave site without her brother, because I wish he was here with us on June the 4th. My daughter should be here with us. We don't supposed to be here. In a million years, we don't expect to be here.
We will answer questions. We'll also, as many of you all know, June is a special month. It's obviously Juneteenth coming. We talk about liberation and freedom. What you will see in June here in Atlanta is June will be a month of reckoning. We will, along with other civil rights attorneys, make sure that lawsuits are filed every single week of June. Civil rights lawsuits will be filed every single week in June until this city responds in a way that is commiserate with being leaders in civil rights. So there will be one next week. There'll be one the week after that. There'll be one the week after that. June will be the month of reckoning for this city. And those of us who do this work, who put our hearts into this for the families that have lost loved ones, that have been injured, that have had their lives traumatized by those that have been hired by this city or elected they will know justice in June. So this is the first, but this will not be the last suit that will be filed with our colleagues, other civil rights attorneys who will be filing lawsuits as well. So we just want, again, this is just the beginning of what is going to be happening here in the city. But it was appropriate that we start with this innocent child as the first one to be filed. And there will be more to come. We're prepared to answer any questions that you have for the lawyers.
What response have you received from the city in reference to this?
None. We haven't received any response from the city. The anti-litem notice that was filed, we filed the anti-litem notice months ago,
We
and
received no response on that.
we received no response. We have had to battle. Sam, Harold, they have been filing open records requests repeatedly to try to get all of the records released. That has been a very, very difficult task. I mean, it's been an ongoing battle. There hasn't been cooperation by the city or the city attorney's office at all.
Mayor Bottoms previously responded to you all's complaints regarding allegations this case is dragging out. And she said that, well, my colleagues, these fellow attorneys, know full well that these things take time and that it's not an overnight process, and any indication that I don't care is not correct. What is your response to that?
Well, I just look at the facts. Why can other cities that have less resources, less skin in the game than this city, the head of the leader of civil rights, can get this done in short time? It doesn't take, you don't have to have Columbo on this case. We know what happened. We know the failures that happened within the city police department. So I don't know what time anybody else needs. I can tell you this, if we're gonna deal with time, this family wants their time back with their child. If we're gonna talk about time, it didn't take a lot of time for them to lose their daughter's life. Why should it take the city a lot of time to make this right? That's just not the appropriate response in my view. And I do think Mayor Bottoms care. I just wanna see that care come into some real action that's meaningful for this family.
Mr. Davidson, Mr. Williams, this is a wrongful death lawsuit, but there are a number of counts for punitive damages, attorney's fees, et cetera. What would the ultimate monetary compensation look like? What is the number here in this lawsuit?
Whatever a jury is prepared to award, and the family has been very clear, this has never been about money for them, never. That their daughter is priceless. We can't even have those kinds of conversations about the value of the case because they've just always felt as though people have not been held accountable. No one has stepped up. Part of it is for people to just step up and acknowledge what happened should not have happened and it was wrong. And so we don't have a value that we're prepared to place on it, but we believe that a jury in due time in the State Court of Fulton County, they will tell us what this case is worth.
Two questions. One, you mentioned the memo, in essence, calling out patrols for that area. Do you guys have a copy of that memo that you'll be able to provide today?
Yeah, we can get you a copy of that memo.
And just one logistic question, has this formally been filed in state court yet, or when will it be filed?
It was filed, it has been
It
filed.
has been filed today. And then the last item I had, just to help our viewers understand the naming of Wendy's and the franchise owner here. You all mentioned, armed vigilantes in the area, patrols were called off. This happened on a public street. With that said, do you believe it would have been safe for the Wendy's owner to go in there and in essence, take control of that property or clear that property to, I guess, make it a safer place?
Yeah, that's the essence of our allegations. Georgia law is clear. You have a legal duty when you're a property owner to provide a reasonable, safe premise and to make sure you take safety and security measures when you're on notice of dangers. It was clear that there was issues, danger, notice of those things, and hazards at that property. Wendy's had a duty under Georgia statutory law to do something about that. Either take care of it themselves or make sure that they work with the city to do that. I think there's going to be a lot of finger pointing in this case, but the reality of it is one person we know was not responsible for what happened. this family and that little girl. So these two entities need to get together and figure out, but we are here to get justice because they both had a responsibility that day.
And I don't expect you to have an answer to it, but with that said, you know, we understand the violence that was capable down there. That's clear. If the patrols weren't happening there from Atlanta police and they were hands off, what was the Wendy's owner expected to, I guess, logistically or practically do to make that a safe spot, knowing that they're not law enforcement?
Well, we're unclear if the Wendy's did anything at all. Did they meet with the mayor? Did they meet with law enforcement? Did they say, we need your help and we will bring in private security? They perfectly, and what we see all across Atlanta and all across communities is that people will set up businesses and then they will be hands off as it relates to the safety in those businesses. Because things went awry doesn't mean that when everything is profitable, you making money hand over fist, you stay in the community. When things go awry, you decide to abandon the community. That's not permissible, that's not acceptable, and that's not something that they should try to hide behind now.
Molly, what do you say to people who, I mean, unfortunately, people get shot and killed in the city of Atlanta almost every day. So what do you say to anyone who says, well, why not bring a lawsuit in that kind of situation? Why not bring a lawsuit when someone gets shot and killed at a gas station? Why in this particular situation? What do you say to that?
This is a very novel, different situation. When you see crimes that are being just committed randomly, there isn't notice that at this particular location there could be danger. If there is, we normally bring lawsuits against the gas stations, against apartment complexes, and against restaurants that don't provide proper security. What's unique about this situation is that the whole world knew that the Wendy's was dangerous. That in fact, Councilmember Shepherd said she wouldn't even go over there after dark. I mean, when in your jurisdiction, when you say I didn't feel comfortable going there after dark, you know there's a problem. And so you have a responsibility. And that's the whole issue of a nuisance being created and being allowed to exist. And that's what's problematic, and that's what distinguishes what we saw on University Avenue from what you see across the city of Atlanta and across the country. People are shot and killed all the time. But in this space, the city knew that this was a dangerous space, and they did nothing about it. And they knew about specific threats of a barricade that they allowed to be erected and maintained by vigilantes, not by peaceful protesters. And I want to make that distinction. And this family wants to make that distinction. They have supported from the beginning the peaceful protesters that wanted to create a Rayshard Brooks Peace Center, but not the people who are armed and threatening people and beating people. There were 2 people shot before this happened. So this, at the very same location. So this wasn't something that anyone can say, well, we didn't know about it. They were on notice. Right before their car went through, there was another car that went through, and threats were made and violence against that vehicle. This is notice.
And to piggyback on what Attorney Davis just said, you will not see as unique a situation typically in these cases where the mayor, the city council, and the police department are specifically making the decision not to have law enforcement act at a certain location. The other cases where we have crime going throughout this city doesn't have that involvement. We had the fingerprints of the city council, the chief of police, and the mayor all making a decision not to, an active, conscious decision not to provide law enforcement services at that location. That's what's different. The fingerprints of the mayor, somebody made a conscious decision and did not take into full account the consequences of that decision. And when you do that, you have to take responsibility when your decision is wrong.
Can you speak to the fact that the city of Atlanta doesn't have general liability insurance to cover these issues?
That is, yes. The fact is that the city does not have insurance. They are self-insured. And so any money will come out of the reserve of the city or from the city's budget. And it's unfortunate That's how they've operated for many years. This is not anything that I put at the feet of this mayor, but that is how this city has operated for many years, and it's problematic.
So could that be the reason why these cases get tied up in court?
No, I'm not going to give the city excuse for that. And the reason is there's other cities that don't have insurance and they have resolution of cases. And our budget at the city of Atlanta, with an airport, with everything we have going on, is way bigger than Louisville and Minneapolis. Trust me. So that's not an excuse. It takes responsibility in someone saying wrong is wrong and right is right. And so, no, I'm not giving them a pass on that. Whether they have insurance or not, this needs to be not only for this family, but a bunch of families out here are having the same excuse thrown back at them where there's no money. There seems to be money when we want to build a stadium. There seems to be money when we want to do something else. Why is there no money when it's time to step up for mistakes when justice requires it?
You talked about a records request being an obstacle right now. How are you approving who made what calls to have police stand down? That the mayor listened to Joyce Shepard and Rodney Bryan in turn listened to the mayor. What evidence are you all going off on this point?
Some of them are they're public statements. They made these statements publicly, and so we're just going back to some of the public statements that were made, the memo that we discussed, the fact that I believe it was the second shooting, that the individual who was there says, the police were here, they saw who shot at us, they let the car go, they never pursued them. And so we have eyewitnesses, and we have the city officials' very own public statements that acknowledge their involvement in their decision-making. They wanted to give Councilmember Shepard an opportunity to mediate or negotiate with the individuals who were occupying the space. That was what the mayor and Councilmember Shepard both have said publicly. That's why they delayed, and that delay resulted in the loss of life. That's why they have to, of all the cases, it just would seem as though this one is as clear cut as any of them. Innocent family, innocent little girl, we acknowledged, we said let's fall back, we didn't police the area, somebody dies as a result of that from the very people that we knew were out there with guns, shooting people and assaulting people. I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than that.
You said earlier that, it wasn't about the money. Can we assume that you guys are doing this pro bono?
No, we're not. We're doing this as we do all of our cases on a contingency. If this family doesn't receive a penny, we don't receive a penny. All of the time, the expenses, everything that we put into our cases, this is how we fight. We fight for this family so that we're in a position to fight for the next one. And we do that without any hesitation or reservation. And that is what we do. That's what lawyers that practice this kind of law, we do. And we do it proudly, and we do it with the confidence of these families that we're going to go all the way regardless of our friendships or relationships. I personally love the mayor. She's, a friend of my wife's, a close friend of our families, but it's bigger than friendship. It's about what's right. And so we stand on that. That's where we are.
And I'll remind you that the legal system set up before me and Mr. Davis ever finished law school said the only remedy for us is monetary. I promise you, hear me clearly, I don't want to be standing here. I don't need to be standing here. I want this little girl back for this family. If you or anybody in the media or anybody in the city can bring this little girl back, I'll step back. But the only legal remedy that exists is compensation for them, okay? So that's what we're gonna do for them. So it's not about the money, it's about this child's life. And the value of that life, just like anybody else in any other system we got in this country, they deserve that. This family deserves that. The city and Wendy's, they put a value system on this girl's life before we got here, when they said, don't put no police out there. So this wasn't about money for them, but somebody made a decision a long time before they got there on July 4th about the value system. And that's what's concerning to me. I don't want to ever do these press conferences with you guys, with any family. But somebody made a decision before law firms and lawyers got involved to value people's lives. And it's unfortunate for me that I'm always typically standing up here with people of color, because it doesn't seem like the government values our lives as much as everybody else's. And so when we have somebody who dies like this, when something could have been prevented, I do not apologize for bringing a lawsuit. And I do not apologize for making sure they get compensated what the law said they are entitled to.
In that vein, so you're saying the police weren't heavy-handed enough in this case?
No,
But
we're not saying that.
But my point being, should they have been more heavy-handed when they were getting heat for being heavy-handed a few days before?
Well, I think heavy-handed is your language, it's not ours.
That's fair.
So what we believe is that there was no policing, right? You can't go from, you shoot a man at the Wendy's and then you say, well, you all are mad about that, so we won't police at all. That's essentially what the rationale has been, is that if you're critical of us, then screw you. We won't patrol your neighborhoods, and we'll just let anything happen. Doesn't work like that. You all took an oath. You took an oath to protect and serve. And so that responsibility, I come under all kinds of criticism. I still have to man up and do the work that I have taken an oath to do. Whether it's gone well for me on one day or not. The next day, I better step to and do what it is that I've taken an oath to do, and that is zealously represent clients. And it's the same with law enforcement. And so all we are saying is that they should have engaged in proactive policing and not just surrendered the neighborhood to what they knew were dangerous individuals who were not about peaceful protests and were focused on using this moment, this pivotal moment in our history, to really terrorize people and create something that was unsustainable to begin with.
And we want to be clear. We're not against police. We just want police to exercise the constitutional rights and the oaths they take, and we want to do that equally. And that's what this issue about. Well, you're against police. No, I want you to police the same way in every community that you do in the black community. Don't treat us different, and make sure you follow our constitutional rights. In the same vein, when it's a time and a place for you to police properly, don't just abandon us. Because I will tell you, and I feel good about this statement, Lenox Road Wendy's wouldn't have had this issue. It would have been cleared out immediately. Why is this community treated different?
Sir?
Both of you gentlemen have already touched on this throughout the press conference, and I have not had a chance to go through the lawsuits. I apologize, but can you elaborate on some of the specific allegations in this complaint filed against the defendants and where you feel the defendants dropped the ball? Can you kind of elaborate and go through some of these key points?
I'll just say this to you, because we'll be here all day. You have to go to law school, but the short of it is they allowed a nuisance to occur at the property. They were on notice of that nuisance, the danger, the hazards that persisted with vigilantes being on the property. We also brought claims for the violation of ministerial duties and oaths that the mayor, Councilman Shepard, interim chief Bryant had. And against the Wendy's owners and operators, we have specifically made a claim, as I stated earlier, on the OCGA 51-3-6 says that every property owner has a duty and responsibility to provide a reasonable, safe place of business. Because that street was an ingress to that Wendy's, they had a duty to make sure that these vigilantes who were on that property was cleared out. They did not have a opportunity, or they did not have the right to abandon the property, which we believe the facts will show. So in a nutshell, without you having to go to Georgia State Law School, that's really what we're saying. The corporation who operated that business and the city who operated the business of policing both had opportunities when they were on notice of this danger to prevent it, and they didn't, which led to the death of this little girl.
Very briefly, I know the focus is on the civil lawsuit today, and I respect that. But since we have the opportunity for questions here, and Secoria's parents are here, we're coming up on the year anniversary, unfortunately, of this passing. Is there a level of frustration? Is there anger towards, I guess, the criminal case right now? One arrest has been made. We haven't seen a lot of action on that case. I think early on, APD said that there could be multiple arrests here, but we've only seen one.
Yes.
Can you just walk us through that process? And of course, if Secoria's parents have any comments.
Secoria's parents have been in constant communication with the district attorney's office, and we've been in communication with them as well. The concern is that there has not been an indictment as of yet. We believe that at this juncture, there will likely be some additional investigation. We obviously would like to see this move forward, and they've been very clear. All parties should be held accountable, not just the individual they currently have in custody, but everybody that was a part of it, that aided and abetted. They are all parties to that same crime. And that is, it has been a level of frustration. She's been talking to detectives. They've both been calling detectives. They've been calling the district attorneys. I mean, how do you get to grieve when you're having to help try to investigate the death of your child and identify people who you believe were out there and a part of this? So this whole process for them has been both frustrating and they've been, at times, yes, angry. All right. We thank you all for coming. You'll see someone next week. Thank you.
They can take pictures, just have this one page, thanks.
Text me your email. You got my number? Yes. It's also right there.
Oh, they have it here?
Yeah, I was gonna email you,
Well,
but
I'd like an email so we can get it in a digital.
yeah. So that's what I said.